Welcome back into the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. Dan Mohrmann, Doug Ottewill, Kyle Newman still with us. Kyle, appreciate you bearing in. I knew it was going to be a long show today, so I appreciate you hanging with us a little bit. We're going to dive into the 6A girls bracket. Your top four seeds are Cherokee Trail, Arapahoe, Valor Christian, and undefeated Broomfield. One of two big classification girls teams that finished the regular season undefeated. We'll just kind of go down the bullet point list. Which quadrant presents the toughest road to the Coliseum or Final Four Coliseum, whatever you want to, however you want to quantify it?
Oh man, I think they're all going to be tough. What I like about the 6A girls bracket this year is I think it's wide open. You have 5 to maybe 8 teams that could legitimately make a run and win this championship, which I think is awesome. Starting with Cherokee Trails, the number 1 seed, Tammy Statewright has done an amazing job with that program. And the Cougars have been knocking on the door of a championship for a while now, for last 3, 4, 5 years. So to see them get the number 1 seed, that's awesome. I think they're gonna probably get to the Coliseum with relative ease, I would guess. I know Eagle Crest, they have couple really good players, some top scorers who transferred over from Vista last year. But I see them getting to the Coliseum. Legend, who's the 9 seed, it's a quote-unquote rebuilding year is what Coach Darren Pitzner tells me, but they still got a bunch of ballers who can play. Broomfield, I think they're really interesting to look at because they've, undefeated record, like you mentioned. They've got some really, really talented players, including a sophomore who is, getting all kinds of Division I looks already. So watch out for them. And then, you keep going down. Riverdale Ridge, a 13 seed. They meet Broomfield in the Sweet 16. Brianna Crittenden, Texas commit. That could be trouble. That could be a really tough matchup for Reese Gilpatrick and the Broomfield girls. So that's going to be a Sweet 16 matchup I would watch. And then Highlands Ranch, you can't count them out. Coach Jaraki always seems to reload. She's got a bunch of really young players, but really good players on her team. Jerry Knoffel at Arapahoe, they got the 2 seed. They're battle tested. Just so many good teams. And of course, Valor Christian, they always seem to find a way to play well in the tournament. And I wouldn't count them out. Wouldn't count out Denver East and Carl Matt either. So to answer your question, all the quadrants I think will be tough. And we're going to see, I think, a really good state tournament, especially from the Sweet 16 onward.
And that was actually, Doug, go first, and I'll jump into my thoughts.
Well, I would echo what Kyle said about quadrant 2. I mean, and that's the one that I picked right off the bat, primarily because you have Broomfield. They're undefeated, but they're a number 4 seed, still atop that quadrant. But, they'll face Riverdale Ridge, at least in theory, 2 games in. And I think anytime you have a star as big as Brianna Crittenden, stars carry teams in high school basketball. And not only do they carry teams, but she's been there. She's won it before. So I think that matchup has great potential, but it's not done there. Depending on who emerges there, there's a good chance that they'll face Northfield. And Northfield is another team that has kind of had great representation at the Coliseum on the girls' side for quite some time now. And so I think that, pretty much every game outside of the first round in that quadrant stands to be good. So I really like quadrant 2.
When I was putting this together and trying to figure out which quadrant I thought was tough, one of the things I was looking at, and I mentioned it to Matt Langley earlier, is how teams were seated in the how teams were seated on the bracket versus what they would be if we were using the Max Preps rankings, like is going to be the case next year. And there wasn't anything that was too egregious. And that, without seeing things play out, what that tells me is you can make an argument for the fact that the bracket is, I would say, accurate through most of it, which just tells me that the field is competitive. Riverdale Ridge is a 13 seed on account of their schedule, and mainly with league, right? That's I think that's one area where you would probably say if you had a human element, if you had a little bit of a selection committee the ability to kind of tweak things a little bit, they probably are sitting with it than 13. I think they can make a run. I don't think Bloomfield's out of the woods when it comes to that. I would say that quadrant 2, that bottom left quadrant, is going to be the toughest just because of something like that. You hit it right on the head, Doug. Stars carry teams, and I think they especially carry teams when it comes to state tournament time, because ultimately, if you have that one player that you need to make something happen, and that player's someone like Brianna Crittenden, that's going to make a huge difference, and especially when you get to a high intensity environment like the Coliseum.
Just to add on about Riverdale, Dan, I mean, we're talking about Brianna Crittenden, but they are much more than Brianna. Shay Hill is a really good player.
Yeah.
Chloe Parker, their point guard, is capable of scoring and dishing. And, I mean, they're a pretty complete team. And, yeah, when you're winning by 70 points a game in your league, it's hard to say that you're really battle-tested. You know, I know they played some tougher games earlier in the season, but I'm going to be interested to see. You know, I think they definitely beat Chaparral to set up that. And then Broomfield, I think, will cruise over Denver South or Pueblo West to set up that Sweet 16 matchup. And it's all about star power. But, yeah, I mean, Broomfield has star power. Reese Gilpatrick, only a sophomore. You know, she's won a gold medal with a Team USA. I believe it's the 18U team or 16U team, 16U team. And she is the real deal. I mean, she's already got a bunch of D1 offers. Like, so to see her and Bree match up, you know, that could be a neutralizing force there. And then what you know, the rest of the team, how good can the rest of the team be? And team I didn't mention, Northfield, that Doug did. They're the real deal too. Northfield is the crown jewel of DPS right now, right? They're getting a lot of the best players. I know they have a lottery system with their enrollment, but look at all of their sports, how they've been on the rise, from football to track, cross country, soccer. Like, Northfield is the best athletic program in DPS right now, and it's not even close. And, you know, it's a newer neighborhood, glitzy new school, huge campus. So I expect them to be very good for years to come, and I think it's only a matter of time before the Nighthawks break through to a state championship. Could it be this year? Possibly.
Well, another team we can't discount in this whole on this whole bracket is Valor Christian. Jessica does a fantastic job with that team. Peyton Jones, their point guard, has had a really solid year. I think she's averaging over 20 points a game in this stretch. And if you look at some of the wins they've had through the course of the year, they beat Regis early. I think they have a win over Arapahoe within the last week or two. So it's not like they're playing you know, a league schedule where you don't have control over, you know, who's good, who's bad. They put tough teams on their schedule throughout the entire course of the year. And I think they have a win over Denver East. I mean, you can go down the line, right? Columbine, who's a good team in Jeffco, and Ralston Valley's looked good throughout the season. Valor is a team that 2 years ago they ended up winning that state title, had a little bit of a disappointing finish to the year last year, but that's a team that's going to be really, really dangerous when things get going here for them later this week.
And hey, how about Arapahoe? And I know you mentioned Valor beat them, and Arapahoe's lone losses came to
they
Valor.
Beat Cherokee Trail early in the year, right?
And they just beat them. You know, just beat them to end the season here. So, and Izzy Johnston, their senior point guard. I mean, they go as she goes, and they've got some other really good players around her. But, you know, Arapahoe's been to a couple Final Fours under Jerry Knoffel, the coach there. They're going to be ready. And Cherokee Trail, same thing. Even though they just lost, 2 days ago to Arapahoe to close their season, they still got the number 1 seed for a reason. You know, they're battle tested. And yes, Arapahoe beat Cherokee Trail twice this year. So that should tell you something. I mean, there's just a lot of really good parity, which I love to see. Like you said, you can't count out Valor Christian. Peyton Jones, phenomenal player. Denver East, Carl Maddy's going to have his team ready for a run, hopefully to get back to the Coliseum like they were there last year. And then Highlands Ranch, who I mentioned, a ton of young players. They're moving down to 5A next year. they're going to be an automatic championship favorite in 5A. But for right now, they got the horses, to make a run in 6A too. In the final year of Coach Jay's tenure, been there for 30 years. Her final year at the highest level, they got some really good players. Kimora Banks Thomas, a sophomore. We saw her at the Coliseum last year as a freshman light it up. Expect her to do the same this season throughout the playoffs. She is one of the best scorers in the state.
Is that Highlands Ranch Arapahoe team a grade 8 game that you'd be front and center for?
Absolutely. And, I know both those coaches well. That would be one where you kind of want both teams to win. I know, Highlands Ranch and Coach Jay, they've gotten criticism over the years just because of the Falcons' amazing success in the first decade of the century, 8 titles in 11 seasons, right? But Coach Jay is a really good coach. I think, if you asked around the state, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of high opinions of her, and she's won the most games, obviously, of any Colorado girls coach ever. Jerry Knoffel has been at Arapahoe for about 4 decades in various capacities and teaching roles, coaching roles, but he's done a great job with the girls program. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And in that quadrant, I think out of any of the quadrants, that seems to be like the most obvious grade 8 matchup that you can kind of forecast ahead for.
Doug, is there any one matchup that potential matchup that you'd like to see? I see you're wearing that Columbine shirt, so I'm wondering if you're.
I mean, I think that the Rebels were kind of another one of those surprise teams this year. They've been very good, so obviously I'd love to see them advance all the way to the grade 8. But yeah, it's hard to that Arapahoe Highlands Ranch game jumps off the screen when you're trying to pick the game of the of potential grade 8 matchups. Just the storyline with Coach Jiraki, the talent at Arapahoe. I mean, there's so much to watch there. Plus, they're next door neighbors. There's a built-in rivalry and healthy hatred there. The other thing that I would say, and I guess it's maybe not a matchup, but I would love to see Brianna Crittenden make it all the way, deep into the tournament, whether that's semis or finals. I just think there's something special about watching one of the greatest players that's ever played in Colorado sports, girls basketball. And that's, the longer we can watch her, the better. So if there's a chance we get to watch her in the grade 8, which would mean she'd have to go through Broomfield to get there, I'd be for that. Despite the fact that I love Broomfield's story too, but I love watching stars deep into the tournament, and so to see her get to that place, that would be another grade 8 opportunity that I think everybody would welcome.
Yeah, and I think
how about Columbine, right? Sorry, real quick on Columbine, they were a surprise team for me, probably the biggest surprise in terms of how well they played this year. I mean, you turn back the clock to 3, 4, 5 years ago, they were middle or bottom of the Jeffco League, and here they are, with a chance to make a huge run in the tournament. And Jordan Washington, their senior point guard, averaging 16 points a game. She's the real deal and a big reason that they're here.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo what Doug said. I kind of want to see a Riverdale Ridge Northfield grade 8 game simply because I think it would almost be a crime for a player like Brianna Crittenden to not get to play at the Coliseum in her final high school season. So tough task getting through that Broomfield team. But if they can get there, I think that's just the appropriate place for her to play her last game, whether it's the grade 8 Final Four or state championship.
Well, and didn't Broomfield lose to Riverdale last year in the Sweet 16? I'm pretty sure they did. So there's going to be some emotions there on the Broomfield side of wanting to get some payback against Riverdale Ridge.
Well, see, and now you're forcing me to look at things on the fly. They very much did.
Trust what Kyle says. He writes for a reputable source.
He does write for a reputable source. In the Sweet 16, that was a 44-41 game. So it was close. Let's see here. Crittenden scored 17 in that game. No one else had more than 8 for her squad. So I think this could be a better Riverdale Ridge team than what we saw last year. It's just a matter of, they're going to be able to put it on all together.